The ride of your life is daddyhood.
For those of you who cannot wait and love daddyhood, please head over to our Patreon. We have exclusive access to episodes, we have early access to episodes, and we have behind the scenes footage. Head on over there, sign up, be part of the exclusive daddyhood group, and join us over there. Welcome back to Daddyhood. We are on the path to parenthood. Today I am joined, I'm going to call you just a surrogacy expert, if you don't mind.
I'll take it.
I'm going to give you that title.
Okay.
Lisa Wippler, thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
I want to go over your bio. It's very impressive. Also, I just saw Marine here, so thank you for your service before we even begin.
Thank you.
So here, we'll get into it. Following her service as a former Marine, Lisa embarked on a remarkable journey in the surrogacy industry. Throughout the years, she has seamlessly transitioned between roles as a surrogate, egg donor, advocate, and innovator. With a wealth of experience, Lisa has emerged as a compassionate and knowledgeable leader in the field. Notably, she played a role in the New York delegation testifying before the Senate Committee on Legalizing Surrogacy, a significant milestone that was successfully passed the following year. In her current capacity as Director of Surrogate Services and Matching at Growing Generations, Lisa orchestrates the seamless process of connecting surrogates with intended parents. Her passion lies in creating an unparalleled experience for surrogates under her care, ensuring that it becomes a safe, cherished, and transformative chapter in their lives. I know from my previous episode with Rich Vaughn that the surrogacy in New York was recently, right? It was just recently passed.
Correct.
And was one of the last few states to legalize surrogacy.
Correct. Yeah, we still have a few states in which we can't work.
I heard 2, right? 2 with some asterisks next to a few of them.
Correct.
Got it.
There's about 6 we don't work with personally just because the legalities aren't clear.
Yeah.
But New York was a tough one. And it was a huge success, I think.
Well, thank you for all of the contributions that you gave to that.
Yeah, no worries.
I can't wait to learn more from you. Before, though, I am practicing my dad jokes. So just bear with me here. It is dad joke time. Hey, Lisa, what vegetable is cool, but not that cool?
I have no idea.
Radish.
Can I hit the button?
Hit the button.
Why do bakers work so hard? Because they need dough.
See, that was a better one than that. Oh my gosh. Thank you for entertaining me.
Love it.
So, I mean, obviously, I just read everything that you've been through and you've contributed. What can you point to in your life that you feel like makes you the proudest out of all of that?
I think that I love to be of service. And I think that's what you'll find amongst most of the surrogates in our community. Mm-hmm. Being a surrogate seems to be just an extension of who you are as a person. So, for example, a lot of our surrogates, you'll know, are on the donor registry. They're always volunteering, not only at their schools, but any of their community programs. And for me, it was also back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So the thought that a woman could help another family be created when motherhood is something that you cherish so greatly is sort of the ultimate gift.
Right.
And so I think that probably above and beyond my own children and grandchildren, I definitely believe that the first time I was a surrogate is absolutely one of the things that I cherish the most.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so excited to dive into your story, and I want to bring our listeners up to speed sort of on my process with my husband and what went into some of the decisions that we made when selecting our surrogate. And also, I think, now we know why our surrogate selected us, because it is a two-way street. I think that's important for people to know as well, is it's not just the intended parents don't just have the green light to say, yep, that's it. And
Exactly.
It's a two-way process.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people know that. We went through the process, and unfortunately the first surrogate that we were matched with did not pass all of, the health screenings that our doctor wanted to see. So then we had to go back into the process again. And it was ups and downs like anything else on this fertility journey. And then we have now been matched and successfully matched with a surrogate who I can say, as protective as I am, is nearby, which was important to us. But also, like, we also knew we did not have control in that.
Of
Like,
course.
wherever we found our good match, we were going to make it work. If it was in Maine, we'd fly across the country to get to Maine. We're lucky that she's in California, just for proximity, and then also just for, protection of legal rights here
course.
too. And I as little as I know her, we already feel so connected and bonded in such a fun way. And I think there's a lot that we can get into. The gift she's giving myself and my family is something that, I could never put a price tag on. I can never put a value on. It's something that, I feel like is one of the most beautiful things in life, to really just like provide something that we can't have ourselves. So I want to talk through with you is like, what went into your decision? Not only were you a surrogate, you were also an egg donor. What went into your decision to do that?
Yeah. So my husband and I were Marines, and we got stationed in California. And so we both come from very small towns. And at the time, we were in North Carolina. So we moved to Los Angeles. We're here in this crazy place. I'm just looking in the back of a parenting magazine, trying to find some resources. And I saw this little tiny ad that talked about surrogates and egg donors. And I remember specifically, even though it was so long ago, I was laying in bed with my husband, nursing my 5-month-old son, hopefully not 5 years. And, I just said, I didn't even know this was a thing. I didn't know really infertility was a thing. I didn't understand that there was this whole community of people. And I told him, I said, I'm going to call about this. This just sounds interesting. Being a Marine, I'm always, like in it to win it. And I called and I thought, this is crazy. So I didn't want to be a donor at that time in my journey because I thought, well, that's my genetic material out there. I don't think I want to do that. But I got involved in surrogacy, and I went to the first support group I went to. There were all these amazing women. They were teachers and nurses and stay-at-home moms, but we all seemed to we didn't know each other, but we all seemed to click.
Yep.
And I went back to my husband and I said, can you imagine not being able to have our boys? I can't even imagine. We were so grateful that we didn't even realize how lucky we were.
Yep.
And so that started my 25-year journey in surrogacy. And one of the most amazing parts of it, I think, that keep surrogates wanting to do it again is, in fact, that delivery room. Once you experience seeing that couple hold their baby for the first time, it is, I won't say addictive, but it is definitely, no matter what you accomplish in your life, you can always sit back and remember that moment. And you know that you played a part in creating this family. And then just one story I'll share as far as my husband being a part of it, because people always wonder what the spouse thinks, right?
Yes.
We were literally in the delivery room, and the dad was on one side. My husband was on the other side because he was coaching, and the mom was sort of over here. And as the baby was being born, I may cry 25 years later, so probably doesn't look good. My husband, who's like this 6'4" Marine, literally reaches across my stomach to the dad and says, "Come on, Dad, you got to come down here. You only get one chance to see your son be born."
Incredible.
And just the bonding between the men, the bonding between the women. And it is correct. I remember a moment, because people always ask me, well, how did you feel when the baby was born? And it went to the parents because the baby was born. And I specifically asked if I could hand the baby to the mom, because I just felt like that was a completion of what I worked so hard to make her a mom.
Yeah.
And she goes over and she's sitting in the chair, and I just remember sitting there looking at them together, bonding, and I thought, I shouldn't be in the room. Like, I felt like I was intruding on this mother-son bonding moment that I got to have myself with my own children.
Right.
And I think that kind of explains how surrogates feel in that moment. Like, you set out to accomplish something, something pretty amazing. You accomplished it. And you get to see those parents with that baby knowing that you played a role, and so did your family in supporting you. and you did it. And so there's no feeling of sadness. There's no feeling of loss. Like that baby wasn't your baby. It was a baby that was entrusted to you to carry to term and then allow it to go back to its parents.
Yeah.
And to see that you accomplished that is just an overwhelming feeling of happiness. And I remember being alone in my room after the baby went to the nursery. And, I had a nurse come in. Are you okay, honey? Are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need me to call the counselor? And I was like, why? I am literally on top of the world.
Yeah.
And then all I could think about at that moment was getting back home to my boys.
Right.
Because I'd been at the hospital for 2
Right.
days. And I'm like, my husband's probably, God knows what he's feeding them. So, it was more of again, resorting back to that mother feeling
Yeah.
of, hey, it's my kids now. I did what I came here to do. It was an amazing experience. And it's unusual, but I'm actually still in touch with that mom.
Oh, beautiful.
And the other 2 journeys, I'm not in touch with them anymore, but it was still.
So you did a total of 3.
I did 3. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was interesting. She invited me to their son's graduation at Yale. And I mean, I had only seen him a couple times in his life, but his mom and I have stayed close friends through the years because we've both went through ebbs and flows in our lives. We talked about parenthood and motherhood. And when I saw him, it was so funny. Like he came up, gave me this big bear hug. And I was a friend of the family.
Yeah.
I wasn't his surrogate. I was his mom's friend that was invited to this wonderful occasion. So that's really how I got my start in surrogacy. Once I did that first surrogacy, I thought, how can I be more involved?
Yeah.
Can we create a support group? Can we get surrogates together more often?
Can I ask at what age did you start?
I was 24.
24. When you
Yeah.
did your first surrogacy.
Correct. I met my husband really young. You
Yep.
know, back in the 90s, you kind of got married young. We were 21 and 22, had both my kids by 24. And then that's when we moved, when the boys were 5 months and 2 years, we moved to California.
Wow. I really want to hit on this just because personally, I've done a lot of self-work over the years and worked with my therapist and psychologist on this too, but just like backing up to the moment where your husband's in that room with you, it's very rare for men, and especially a man who was in the Marines,
Yes.
to have that vulnerability and to
Yeah.
be able to say and take that moment and be present in that moment to say to the other father, you like, what are you doing? Like, this is your moment.
See your boy.
It's rare for men.
It is.
To be able to be that vulnerable. Can you talk, obviously I'm sure he was an incredible support system. Can you talk about how surrogacy impacted him and your family?
Yeah, I absolutely can. And I actually have had him talk to other husbands before. If their wives really want to be a surrogate, but the husband's really uncomfortable, usually they're uncomfortable because they know that their wives are great mothers and they can't imagine their wives carrying a baby, delivering a baby, and not wanting to keep that baby, because that's been their experience, right? They're great mothers.
Yep.
And so, my husband's able to really talk about, again, how my emotion about it is.
Yeah.
He wanted to help see, actually, the intended mom be a mom because he really felt very compassionate toward her. He absolutely loved her. And so the way he handled it, though, might not be the way that most husbands would, given, again, he was a Marine.
Yep.
Because the way he announced it, because I would come all the time and bring the troops brownies, whatever,
Yeah.
And he was in one of his staff meetings where they were, doing the plan of the day. And he was like, hey, guys, I just want you to know, you're going to see my wife running around here. She's pregnant. And all the guys were like, yeah, goody, And he was like, wait, it's not mine. And, everybody was like, oh, what? And then he was like, she's a surrogate. We're caring for at the time, we usually said friends of ours because it was so unusual that if you just said surrogacy, it came with this negative connotation. So we always said we're doing it for friends. And the reality is by the time that you get to an embryo transfer,
They are friends.
You are friends.
Yeah.
You are friends. And it doesn't matter what that level of friendship is, it's still a friendship. So that's the way that he interacted with it. My boys were really too young, but I think it was really great that my intended mom was present. When she would come to fly out, she would visit with the boys. She would bring them something little like Legos that she could play on the floor. So when I got bigger, I would just say, they would touch my belly and I would say, it's Amy's baby. And that was their internal monologue. That baby was never staying. It was not their sibling. They would, an occasion in an inappropriate way, tell people that I wasn't keeping it, like at the grocery store, when people would be like, "Oh, you're pregnant," and they would look at the boys and they would say, do you want a brother or sister? And they would say, "It's not ours. We're not keeping it." And and the
Incredible.
yeah, it was like,
Oh,
it's
kids are so pure.
it's so fun. It really is. And you just kind of laugh. And I would say, "Yeah, it's not," and sometimes we would just leave depending on how the
Conversation went.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I would
Wow.
get into it, but
Was there a lot of pushback? I know you said you had to somewhat tiptoe around, even, telling white lies of like, oh, it's friends of ours. I think it's important for people to understand sort of like just the complex opinions of people and also just where our society is back then versus even today. I'm sure there's still some, I know for a fact off of, we've brought it up on this podcast before, but even like the Pope's statements, there's mixed opinions out there.
There is.
And, people don't always feel comfortable sharing that. So can you talk about then and now and where those opinions are?
For sure. I think the opinions,
Sorry.
it's okay. I think the opinions, to be honest, are consistent throughout the decades because you're going to have people, even people in your life. If you have that aunt that no matter what you do, she's always going to find something wrong with it, she's not going to change because it's surrogacy, right?
Right.
I think also even my mom, who was a registered nurse, had problems with it. She understood the genetics and the biology of it, but she still said, "I'll still think of it as my grandchild. You're carrying a baby. That baby's got to be my grandchild," and it took a lot of conversation with her. I really had to have multiple really deep, heartfelt conversations about why I wanted to be a surrogate, what it meant to me, what it meant to the intended mom. I almost said her name. Let me do that again. What it meant to the intended mom. And eventually she did come around.
Yep.
But I think that what I usually tell people is when you initially start this process, be selective of who you tell.
Totally.
Bring in people who you know are going to be your support system.
Yep.
But you also should, if there's someone in your life whose opinion might impact your decision to move forward, you have to have that conversation first too.
Totally.
So, for example, if my mom had lived in California with us and she had been the one who was watching our children for us, I would have had to have that conversation and consider whether or not I could pursue it just based on her opinion because it would have impacted my family as well.
For sure.
So I think that the opinions sort of have been the same, and it's just you have to have someone that you know and trust, which is what I love about Growing Generations, is that we have this whole education process of how do you tell your children? How do you tell the teachers? How do you tell your family? What conversations can you have? How can you have the conversations?
Yeah.
And I think that just open transparency and having someone that's been there is really helpful.
Yeah. So you just alluded to something that I really want to touch on and I'm interested in is let's talk about the emotional journey. Did it differ from your own children and carrying them? And did you do things differently? Was there a different support system that you tapped into? Let's just, I really want to figure out, just emotionally where you were at and then also your support system.
For sure. So it's definitely different. It's actually very different than carrying your own children. So, when you are creating your own family, you are creating this child out of love with your husband or your partner, and you already have plans for that child. You're putting your nursery together. You're picking out names. You're buying clothes. You're thinking about what are they going to look like? What are they going to do? Are they going to look like you? Look like me? And when you're carrying your own child too, there's just those really intimate moments that sort of solidify that bond you have with them. Also, when you have your own children, you make different decisions. So if I want to go, say it was my second child, if I want to go down the slide with my first child, down the slide I go, because I'm making decisions for myself. When you're caring for someone else, I think there's an added layer of protection in terms of how you behave during the pregnancy. So, for example, I always thought myself, and I always tell my surrogates, just pretend your intended mom's with you. And would you do that thing? So like
in front of them.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, if we have surrogates call and say, "Hey, we're going here. do you think so-and-so would mind? And I would say, if you were my surrogate, I wouldn't mind if you go, but I would make sure that you stayed hydrated. I'd make sure that you're going to have to avoid any rides, even maybe the kiddie rides,
Yep.
know. So I think that it's not that you love your child less. It's that you feel an additional layer of responsibility that you are not caring for yourself. You're caring for someone else. This is someone else's child. Just like when you're babysitting someone. You may let your boys eat Cheez-Its all day. But if you know that mom that you're babysitting for doesn't let her child do that, you're probably going to put them in the cabinet. So you don't even have them out that day. Right? And then when you're caring for a couple, I think that you find those bonding moments with the intended parent. So when I found that if the baby would kick, first thing I would be doing, back in the 90s, we didn't have cell phones, but, I'd pick up the phone and I'd be like, the baby just kicked, or I actually had a headset with a recording. One of the moms had recorded her reading stories, bedtime stories. And she said, would you play this? Do you mind? Is it awkward? Is it weird? And I was like, I'll totally play it. So we put the little headphones over my belly and we would play that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a mentality of you are babysitting this baby. It is your responsibility, just like it would be if you were babysitting a toddler, to take care of this baby, to do what you can to make sure it's healthy and happy, and try to stay calm as you can, that environment. I didn't personally have a problem. I didn't have a lot of special requests during the pregnancy, but I wouldn't have had a problem with that. I was back in the day, I was a big Diet Coke drinker.
Yep.
And one of the moms was like, can you not drink Diet Coke? Like, we're really concerned about it. And I said, I totally can. And I said, but I was like, if I'm really craving one, can I give you a call and be like, I just really have to have a Diet Coke,
Yeah.
And that was our thing. And so she trusted that I was going to follow her requests, and that if I had a moment, I was just going to give her a call, and we shared that moment. So it wasn't like, it was like, listen, I don't know what your kid's doing, but it literally wants a Diet Coke right now. So stay on the phone with me. Like, let's do it.
Incredible.
Yeah. And so I think that that's what's really important. Other people might have touched on this, but I think the screening process for the surrogate is of the utmost importance. And you don't just screen. The obvious things are health, physical health, mental health, secure, but there's another layer to that that's more nuanced.
Yeah.
That I think comes with being in the industry for a while, because someone might look fabulous on paper.
Right.
But then in the conversations you have with them, you know that they kind of still don't really get it.
Yeah. And I want to get all into that as well. And what also, for Jordan and myself, our situation with our surrogate too, and, how we feel comfortable and what we've gone through. I want to touch on too, I want to hear some of the differences between the three different journeys, and maybe some requests that came through, like the no Diet Coke, I think is very interesting. I know for us, we felt what was important, just based off of science and some studies and research that we did, was we wanted quality meats in our surrogates diet. And I sent a subscription of Butcher Box to my surrogate with fresh meats that she selects every single month. For her entire family to use. So that was like our only thing that we were somewhat picky about.
Common.
But other than that, we'll never ever have to experience being pregnant and like the ups and downs and the emotions that it does and has on women. So we just were like, it's not really our place, other than like, if we can help take something off of your plate, and so you don't have to go grocery shopping. And, I know we'll get into this as well, but I think in our contract, they have a stipend for groceries while she's going through this anyway. But on top of it, we just wanted to make sure that financially organic meats and quality meats, which I already know just with Butcher Box is like done, like we know what we're getting from them. It sort of relieves her and us of that in our mind. What other than not drinking Diet Coke, maybe have you heard what was different between the three for you?
For sure. I think that the meat thing is a common thing. And I think that it's easily solvable by exactly what you did. sometimes it's not even a financial thing for surrogates. Sometimes it's just their location.
Okay.
Not every
Yeah,
location has
yeah, yeah,
access
yeah.
to Whole Foods or places where you can purchase that type of stuff. So especially full organic. And I think that it's pretty awesome to say, hey, listen, we would like to do this for you.
Yeah.
Makes you happy, makes me happy. And then, you let it go. We didn't have a lot of requests outside of that during my journeys, but I have, we have had intended parents that have had requests. And what I typically say to them, because I do talk to intended parents as well, is first of all, keep in mind, these women have been chosen because they have healthy pregnancies and they have healthy babies. So whatever choices they've been making for those pregnancies has worked.
I want to hit on that because some of our listeners and viewers might not understand this fully.
Okay.
One of the criterias when we were going through this is to even be selected as a surrogate, you have to have at least one successful pregnancy.
Correct.
I never knew that entering in. I just thought maybe we'll get matched with somebody who's young and healthy and like, hopefully it works out.
Right.
And you also think about it, you would not expect a surrogate to already be a mother, possibly. At least in my head, I was not like, oh, she probably already has a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case.
No.
Can we talk about that and why that is?
For sure.
Why it is?
For sure. It's really important that surrogates not only have a child, but that they're parenting that child, at least for growing generations. It's different. Different agencies do have different requirements, but having at least a child is standard across the board because they don't know if they can get pregnant.
Right.
You don't know.
Yep.
So just because they might be 24, super healthy, they haven't even challenged their own fertility yet. So it's really important that they've had a successful pregnancy, they've delivered that child, but also parenting that child is really important for multiple reasons. Mm-hmm. So that is a given across the board.
That was why we ended up feeling so confident with the surrogate that we ended up fortunately matching with was they have a young kid, an infant-ish, and they actually live in the same complex as her parents.
Oh, wonderful.
So they have that support in the same building. So like if things, were to get complicated at any point, they have that ability to call in support.
Right.
And that was also something like I know from just, going through hard times and challenging times is if you do not have a support system, it's very challenging to get through it. So that was one thing that we really looked at in our criteria too, is like, how does her support in her community look in her living situation?
Right. I think people sometimes focus on the paper, what things look like on paper, but I think that that's really extremely important. So looking at your support system and also having conversations with that support system so that they know what their role is and having conversations that they understand what the process is and knowing that surrogate does have that support. So if she's single, having that extended family, if she's partnered, making sure that partner's on board, because I've had multiple people apply and say, hey, listen, I want to do this. This is my dream, but my husband partner is not really comfortable with it. And I have to say to them, I will provide you with all the education that you can provide to him. He can talk to my husband, but at the end of the day, if your partner's not on board, we can't move forward. It's just so vitally important because they're the one that's there for you.
Right.
When you're pregnant, when you're hurting, when you can't get up and take care of your own children, when your kids are sick, but you're bed rest for whatever reason, someone else has to step in and do all that work. If your back's hurting, your feet's hurting, you have to have that support.
Let's talk about what that conversation looks like. So when you first approached your husband, I know you alluded to it a little bit. How was that conversation and how was his reaction at first?
It's exactly what I said. He said, babe, I think that's amazing that you want to do that, but I don't think you could give the baby up. I mean, surrogacy wasn't a big thing back then.
Yeah.
It was really, really new. And he said, I don't see you carrying a baby and doing that. And I just thought, again, it takes a certain person to be able to be loving and take care, but also know that you can refocus that attention. And, we just had open, honest conversations for a while. And eventually he said, okay, well, if you think this is something you can do and at the end you're going to be okay, then
were you nervous at the beginning that he might be right?
I don't know. I think that, again, with surrogates, I think that when you know, you know.
Yeah.
I think that there's women who, when they know, they know. And then there's women who think they might be okay. And the think they might women that come to my program are the ones that are probably make it to like a certain part and then there's sort of a final cut. But I think that's where it's really important that the psychologist be trained in third party reproduction and that they're really devoted to the overall well being and health of the surrogate, because it's a first do no harm, right? We don't want anything bad to happen to that surrogate and her family,
Right.
whether it be emotionally, you know. So I think he came around eventually, but also, again, I'm a Marine and, you know, I don't really get coerced, nor do I usually get
Yeah. Yeah.
sit in a different direction. And I think once he saw that, he knew that I'd been going to support groups.
Yep.
He knew that I'd been talking to a counselor. And then he knew that I went through the psychological screening and that all that was good. So then it was just a matter of supporting me.
So you were qualified all the way through. Now, did he have to go at that time? Did he have to see a psychologist and go through any of the counseling too?
Back then, you just do an interview.
Okay.
You
With the
know?
husband.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's multiple.
Yep.
It just depends on the different agency, what they do.
Yeah. I know our surrogate's partner, husband,
Yeah.
had to go through all the psych evaluations and screenings just as much as she did too.
Correct. That's pretty much the standard nowadays for your higher end
Got it.
good agencies.
One thing that we were curious about, it actually just recently came up too, just in conversations. And if you're not comfortable talking about it, you don't have to, but
I'm an open book.
great. We were curious, what does the doctor instruct a surrogate to do leading up to the procedure? As far as are you allowed to have sex in that month, in that week? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, different doctors are different.
Okay.
And so it just depends on your reproductive doctor. Whatever the guidelines they set, you know, there's not usually guidelines in the contract,
Yeah.
but there's guidelines with your reproductive doctor. And I think it's also more along the lines for pelvic rest. You know, you want to just make sure that your body's ready for an embryo transfer.
Got it.
So I think it would be difficult if you said to a lot of spouses, hey, listen, you know, there's a difference between not having sex a few weeks prior to an embryo transfer, which makes total sense,
Right.
versus you can't have sex for the rest of the pregnancy. I think that
I think some men like pregnant sex, right? And some women do too. They prefer it.
They do. And actually, my husband loves pregnant women. So that was kind of he always
worked in
loved me
his
when I
favor.
was pregnant. Yes.
Yeah.
And so the thought of him being able to have a pregnant wife again without having another baby at the end of it was like
Yeah.
heaven.
I think there's a lot of men that possibly carry shame around admitting that, but I think that's a common, I've heard it from a lot of women, and I've heard it from a lot of men too, of like, I love connecting with my partner, both intimately and, you know, emotionally when they're pregnant.
And my husband always thinks that pregnant women are beautiful. So
He sounds like an A+ man
He kind of
already.
is.
I mean, you hit the jackpot.
I might keep him around.
He did too. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. On our episode with Rich Vaughn, he actually shared a story in which there was a case that a surrogate was pregnant with twins, and one of them was her biological makeup and the other one was her intended parents. And it was a complex situation to navigate through. But I think it's just important to understand, like, there's bumps in this path to parenthood, and this journey is filled with twists and turns.
It is. And I'll just really quickly go back to that so your readers or your listeners don't say, what in the world did he just say? And you just kind of skipped over it. That is going to be such a rare occasion.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a medical professional, but I'll just say that when you're a surrogate, there's a series of medications that you take that prevent you from ovulating. So in that scenario, there must have been some kind of breakdown in the medical protocol that allowed her to break through ovulate prior to an embryo transfer.
Yeah. I mean, it's just when he was telling me about that, I was like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I just know how detailed our doctor's been. I know how detailed our surrogate has been and her entire team. It really does take a team. And I think, you know, I've said it before. I think Jordan and I right now currently have a team of 9 people helping us create our family. And we're so grateful and appreciative of that. But it's not as easy and as seamless as people think. It's like, there's a lot of layers. There's a lot that goes into this. And I'm interested for you, who, other than your partner and your husband, who is your support system through this?
Well, again, we're a little bit unusual because we were military and we traveled a lot. most heavily relied on each other. And but during the process, what was really great is I had a lot of surrogate sisters.
Yeah.
So you have that person or 2 people or 4 people, that you can talk to, that if you're going through the transfers together. As a matter of fact, I just had a phone call with someone who did her 2 surrogacies at the exact same time I did my 2 surrogacies. And we shared that bond back then.
Yep.
And we hadn't talked in years. And I don't even know how it happened, but I saw her name on Facebook that someone else knew. And I just messaged her. Then I picked up the phone and I went back through pictures that I had 25 years ago of the 2 of us carrying our surrogate, journeys together. So I think that that's a great resource. I know that with Growing Generations, we have a private Facebook group of former surrogates, current surrogates, future surrogates, and everyone's able to just connect with each other. And my team, between us, we've had 28 surrogate babies.
Wow.
So
that is incredible.
That's a really great resource.
So now you're the director of surrogate services at
Correct.
Growing Generations. I just want you to speak directly to listeners and viewers out there that might be considering this. Let's talk about it. Why become a surrogate? What should they consider? And just the impact on your life that it's had and the rewards that you've felt.
Yeah. So I think that if you're considering becoming a surrogate, one of the most important things is to do your research. There's so much research available out there. Sometimes it can be confusing, but I think picking how you do your journey is the most important thing off the top. So, and I won't even talk about specifically Growing Generations, but I'll talk about what I think is so incredibly important.
Yep.
Of course, this is how I do it at
Yeah.
Growing Generations.
Right.
I think that finding an agency that fits your needs. So a smaller agency might not be better for you, even though you think, oh, well, there's only 2 people here. But what happens when one's on vacation and you're bed rest and you need help? Finding an agency that doesn't cut corners, finding an agency who treats everyone like a client. You don't want to feel like a surrogate that you're not important.
Yeah.
And I've heard that before, that because intended parents are paying the money for the journey and it's their baby, that you sort of just have to toe the line. I think that it's really important for you to be acknowledged and appreciated for the amazing thing that you're trying to do for someone else. I mean, it doesn't happen that often and it is rare, but women die in childbirth.
Yeah.
Surrogates could.
Right.
So you could find yourself bed rest and missing your son's first football game, your daughter's first dance recital. It happens. And so just really getting with someone who's knowledgeable about the process, who cares about you, an agency or otherwise that makes sure you're using the proper professionals, because not everyone does.
Right.
And I think the challenge that surrogates find themselves in is that as a collective, we are very empathic. We want to help people. We don't stand up for ourselves very often. And so sometimes potential surrogates find themselves in scenarios that aren't as favorable for themselves. I want to help my doctor or my teacher or this person I found online because they can't afford an agency and they can't afford a higher compensation. They can't afford these different things. And just because of inherently who we are, we don't want to say, well, no, that doesn't feel comfortable. Often I get surrogates who fill out their profile looking for a couple, and inevitably it says, what are you looking for in an intended parent, and what kind of relationship do you want? Surrogates, majority of the time, are going to put whatever the couple wants. But then when you have further conversations about, well, but let's not talk about them for a minute. Let's talk about yourself.
Yeah.
Do you envision yourself having communication after? Are you okay with communication for a couple of months and then Christmas card list? Like, let's talk about what you're truly comfortable with, because otherwise I can't really match you hoping that you have this amazing journey.
Yeah.
Because inevitably it's like a love match, right? I feel like I'm a matchmaker. Is really what I
You
feel
are.
like.
You're the ultimate matchmaker.
I am. I do feel like the ultimate matchmaker. And my goal is to make sure that everyone completes that journey feeling like it was the most incredible journey ever.
Yep.
Now, for someone that could look like, listen, we're going to have a great time, but after the baby's born, we really do want to focus on our family,
Yeah.
and we will always love you. You will always be on our mind. But I find a surrogate who feels the same way.
Yep.
Like, I'm not really doing this to have like a long-term family. We have a full life,
Right.
but I really want to help someone. So match them together. Don't match the surrogate who really in her heart wants a long-time friendship, if it's possible,
Yeah.
with a couple doesn't want that. So I tell that to my surrogates, like, listen, no one's going to think odd of you. Like, you do have to sit back and
Yep.
and decide, what is it you're looking for in this journey?
Yep.
And what do you need to feel accomplished at the end of it?
Mm.
And so I would say to surrogates, do your research, but also do some soul searching. It's okay to say that you would like them to be there for 2 appointments. It's okay to say that when the baby's born, you would like for your children to be able to come in and meet the family so that your children are like, okay, I get it. This is
Right.
dad's. Like, this is where this baby's going to go, and it's their baby, and it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Make sure that you feel comfortable writing those requests down. And then sort of, most surrogates aren't good at business.
Yep.
So if finding an agency that you trust to take care of you and to trust that your contract covers your family and then that it's mutually beneficial for both parties, it's so hard for surrogates. Trust me when I say most of the times we send a surrogate a contract and they don't even ask questions because they don't think they should, or they don't think they can, even if they have questions about it. So you do have to be your own advocate, but
Yeah.
if you want, do you want someone who's going to be there with you through the whole journey like
Yeah.
we are? We're with surrogates, from the application till months and months and months and months after they deliver, and all the way in between. But some surrogates are like, I don't need all that hand holding. I don't want it.
Right.
So you just have to find the place that's right for you. You really have to soul search on what you're doing it for and what you need to feel accomplished. And you need to make sure you protect your family.
Mm.
So you may find yourself in a scenario in which you didn't ask for certain things or have certain things covered in your contract, and then you're not protected.
Yeah.
You have a couple who you found on the internet who is cutting corners because they can't afford it. And then now you're having medical bills come in and they're not paying them. You know what I mean? It's like there's always the potential out there for that.
Right.
And so when I have people who come to me and ask the difference between, say, an independent journey and an agency, I'm going to be really honest. For the surrogate, I don't see any reason why a surrogate would want to go independent unless she can't qualify at an agency. Because it's really not in her best interest to not have all those professionals around her protecting her around topics that she's probably not that comfortable discussing.
Yeah. And I have a lot of thoughts and follow-up questions. Yeah. You don't understand why somebody would go independent. And I think I would love to hear from you. What went into your decision-making process of selecting? Because it, like I said at the top of this, it is a two-way street. The surrogate has to agree and say, yes, I want to carry this person's baby too. Was there criteria that you were looking for as a surrogate?
For sure. And I'm going to touch on this really quick because I think it's important in this community and for your listeners as well. Keep in mind, like I said, I came from a really small town.
Yeah.
Military in the 90s, very anti-gay. And when we moved to California, I would have never considered caring for a gay couple back then.
I love that you said that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. My world was really small. I hadn't really been exposed to a lot of...
You only know what you know.
Right.
At that time.
Right. And so we were still very new, very young. We're in California, which was terrifying to us coming from small places.
Yep.
The military, we didn't talk about it.
Right.
It wasn't accepted.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Exactly. And so, and actually back then, there wasn't a lot of options for gay parenting. Growing Generations was the option. Unfortunately, I wasn't there at the time. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't have picked a gay couple anyway.
Right.
So
So I want to back other than moving to California, and
Right.
probably, I'm assuming, starting to have gay friends and gay people enter into your life, what made you change your mind and change your stance and change your beliefs and your values? Because like I grew up in a small town in Illinois, very Republican conservative, at times homophobic and anti-gay.
correct.
And you only know what you know. Obviously kept me in the closet for a long time. I held values and morals that I thought that were homophobic and grew. What ultimately changed that for you?
Working in the industry, and as the tide started to shift and we started to see gay couples coming in the program and reading these profiles, it really opened my mind and heart, because you asked me what my criteria was. My criteria was simply not coming from the best childhood background, was I picked families that I wish I could have grown up in as a child.
Oh, wow.
So that was really, really important to me. And so I picked that first family thinking, oh, if I could have grown up in this house, like if I could have grown up with these parents, if I could have grown up with these opportunities, right? So then I did my second journey, also a straight couple, picked the same couple for the same reason. But in between that second and third, which was 96 to 2002, I really started seeing a shift in how I felt and also how my husband felt. Because even though it was don't ask, don't tell, we would have pool parties at our house and he would invite his troops over. And he had one female Marine who would bring her secret partner over and they would swim together and do the whole thing. And so we just being exposed to different people and different families and different conversations. So between the second and third, I did pick a gay couple. Unfortunately, they couldn't make embryos and just different things happened and they decided not to pursue surrogacy. They went a different route. But from that point on, it was like, show me profiles. And I'm going to pick someone that I would love to grow up with, right?
Incredible.
So I think that was my criteria all along, was I just want to pick a family that I wish I could have grown up with.
So beautiful. The growth there.
I mean, I'll take it a step further, which I can't believe I would say this on a podcast, but so I've been married 33 years. My husband 7 years ago told me he was transgender.
Wow.
So to go from in 1992, we together collectively, he agreed, but for probably some of the same reasons that you made your choices along the way, to come to this place. And it's been difficult, but to work through that, I would not have stayed with my husband had I not had the experiences I've had through surrogacy. I know that emphatically. Had I not been working at Growing Generations with the support system that I was given there through coworkers in the industry, I would not be married today.
Wow.
So,
and I know it's not your story to tell. Can I ask where you guys are and where you're at in the process and how you're working through things?
Still a conversation 7 years later.
Wow.
We're still dealing with sort of the ups and downs of it, right? He's still dealing with, 60% of the time he's still that Marine, out working on cars, doing the thing. And then there's that 40% that he's that other side that I have really learned to love and appreciate. For example, he picked out my clothes today because I don't know how to dress.
Beautiful choices, by the way.
Thank you. I'll make sure I tell him.
It actually goes. The golden yellow is our secondary color to green.
Okay, well, I'll take a clip of that and send it to him. He'll be happy.
Perfect.
He'll be happy. So that's a challenge too. But I think that just like surrogacy, it's an educational process, right? It's communication. It's trust. It's love.
It's human.
It's human. You just have to lead with love, everything you do.
For sure.
And without the communication part of it, the same as with surrogacy. You have to be able to communicate your true needs, desires. You let the professionals help you sort it out, what's okay and what's not okay. Like, can I send the steak box? Should I not? How can I do that in a way that is comfortable for me but doesn't feel pressuring to her? So I think that there's just a lot of honesty needed. There's a lot of communication needed. There's a lot of trust needed. And It's the same with my personal life as well as with our professional life.
Wow. That's incredible. And I'm proud of you. And also just like what an incredible couple. And also just like the perspective that you have of like, I don't know if I would have handled this the right way if I wouldn't have been a surrogate is such a important thing to say.
Surrogacy is life-changing. It's really life-changing. When I met my first intended mom, I didn't even know. They took me out to dinner one time to this fancy restaurant. I'd never been to anything that fancy.
Yeah.
And I had to watch her eat so I'd know how
What
to, like the
utensils to
silverware.
use.
To how to use the silverware. And there's just small things throughout that journey because I didn't have a strong female role model in my life. Watching her strength, she became my role model, like how she handled things. And I would catch myself thinking how it must feel for a wife to not be able to carry her husband's child.
Yeah.
And you're turning all of this control over to this other woman, and you're just hoping she takes good care of herself. And you're hoping that at the end of the day, she's okay giving the baby back, right? And surrogates are like, I'm just hoping they take their baby at the end of this. I'm hoping they don't try to leave this baby with me. So it's like both parties really kind of have the same fears.
Yeah.
And once you acknowledge that and tell them, like, I know you think this, you're worried about the surrogate keeping your baby, but guess what? She's worried you won't take it. So, like, let's talk about this.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
It's true.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
So true.
The last thing I want to talk about, because it was a conversation that my husband and I had to have too. We had people jokingly, but then also some serious inquiries of friends/family of ours that would say, I want to carry your baby. I just want to touch on this quickly of the pros and cons. And it sounds like, you know, we viewed there was way more cons than there was pros from something like this. Let's talk on this, on surrogates that are friends or family members of the intended parents.
Sure. I think in the industry, we sort of refer to it as altruistic surrogacy.
Okay.
I believe there's challenges. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't work or it hasn't worked. So I don't want anyone listening going, well, we did it and it was great.
Right.
But I think that there are some definite hurdles and roadblocks that can happen. So for example, let's pretend you said yes to someone, family member who said, yeah, let's, you know, what if she goes to Disneyland and you know, you see pictures, you know, she was riding the rides with her kids and then she miscarriages, you know, she has a miscarriage. You don't know that ride contributed, but you'll wonder. And now you have this dynamic within your family that this happened. What if you're caring for, you know, your aunt who can't afford surrogacy and you get out of work on bed rest, but you never talked about what's going to happen if you can't work and you can't support your own family? Is your aunt now going to help supplement your income? Can she even afford to supplement your income? Is she going to come clean your house? Is she going to take care of your kids? Can you ask for a house cleaner? Because you don't want your aunt in your house cleaning all
Right.
after your family.
Right.
I just think that there's a lot of potential disadvantages emotionally
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the family. Sure, if everything goes great, she gets pregnant on the first try, has an uneventful pregnancy, baby's great, everything's wonderful, it's great.
Yep.
But when those other things come up, what if there's a contractual issue and you didn't necessarily have a contract? What if she wants to go 30 weeks, drive her family to Michigan when you know it's illegal in Michigan or non-enforceable in Michigan? And if she delivers there, you're not going to get your name on the birth certificate. It's not happening.
Wow.
So do you tell your niece, no, you can't take a family vacation to see your grandmother in Michigan because you're 30 weeks and you
Yep.
might deliver? You can a surrogate
Yeah.
that you met.
That was our ultimate decision.
Yes.
Is as much as we feel bonded and appreciative. I don't know if this might sound weird. You know, she has a job to do for us
Exactly.
to help. It's a contractual agreement that we felt more comfortable with as far as like our relationship and how we wanted to handle that. So that was like the ultimate deciding. But I know there's a lot of people out there who, you know, the financial burden of surrogacy is high. And I know there's people out there that, you know, are always looking to save some money and to cut corners, but I also think it's important that they understand the risks involved with that.
Absolutely.
From cutting corners and saving money on lawyers and those contracts and those agreements can end up costing you a lot more in the end.
It really can. And more than money.
Yeah. Well, I can't say thank you enough. This has been an incredible conversation, one that I hope will help so many potential future surrogates out there, and probably healing to a lot of the surrogates who have gone on this journey just like you.
Right.
Thank you for being open and vulnerable about your journey and your incredible husband. I want to leave with some words of wisdom.
Okay.
So some parenting advice that either has been passed down to you, you passed to your children, you've heard on the street. Leave us with some knowledge.
Okay. So my grandmother, very, very country, Kentucky country, told me something one time that I thought was so amazing because she was so brilliant and unassuming. She said, when I was asking her for parenting advice one time, she said, you just have to remember that you're supposed to be your child's compass. And in being their compass, you have to allow them to learn to navigate their life. So it's your job to give them their moral foundation and to teach them the right and wrong, but then ultimately you have to let them navigate. And you hope that one day they use that same compass to come back home.
Wow, beautiful.
That was her.
I'm probably gonna
Steal
that.
it, take
Steal
it.
it.
Yeah.
Take it.
You can
Become the
you can put-
foundation and the case of the compass for my child.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And again, if I'm also open, you don't
Yeah.
have to be a growing generation surrogate. You don't have to be part of our company. I am here for surrogates all across and hoping that we can really create an industry that is supportive of all the surrogates and to make sure that we continue to make this, a journey that they will treasure forever.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Daddyhood.
The ride of your life is daddyhood.